Oh, looks like we're live. Well, welcome everybody to our latest Tuesday afternoon youth work conversation. And here in our Zoom room, we've got a number of people. So I think we'll make a start by asking people to introduce themselves. Sam, you're the youngest person here. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sam. I'm a year 11 student in Durham. And so obviously now I would be doing my GCSEs.
Yeah, thank you. Dawn.
Yeah, so my name's Dawn. I work for the Leeds Diocese as one of the children, family and young people advisors up there.
Thank you. And Ben?
Hi, I'm Ben. I work for Leeds Faith in Schools. So we're a little charity in Leeds and we work in high schools across Leeds, kind of delivering pastoral care and trying to bring a Christian presence into the high schools.
Oh, fantastic. And my name's Andy. I work with Durham Diocese and I oversee the 11 to 18 year olds here in the diocese. And one of the things I do is to run a youth council, and Sam is a member of that youth council. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. We normally start with a bit of a silly question. And so what I sort of get people thinking is, what is your earliest birthday memory? What is your earliest memory from a birthday? Dawn, have you thought of one yet?
No, do you know?
Okay. We'll go to other people first, and then we'll come back to you when you thought of one.
People.
Yeah. So, Ben, do you want to start?
Yeah, I will start us off. So mine is from my 4th birthday, and it's when I've done love languages quizzes, gifts always come up, so it's not surprising that my memory is related to a gift. And my grandma and granddad bought me a set of AA vans. So there was the classic standard AA van, there was a tow truck, and then the one I loved the most was like a 4x4 AA van with off-road tires and stuff like that. And I played with it it felt like every minute of every day for the whole of my 4th year of life. But it's just stuck in my head. And I looked recently to see, because I'd lost them along the way somewhere. I looked recently to see if you could get them on eBay or anything like that. But apparently they're classed as vintage, so they were going for crazy amounts on eBay. And my wife would not be happy. Invested money in some toys which probably wouldn't get played with.
And just for interest, Ben, are you a member of the AA now?
No, actually, I remember the RSC. So.
Thank you, Ben. Sam, have you got not quite so long ago in the past for you, maybe?
No, I was discussing with my dad whether it's my 4th or 5th birthday. Couldn't really remember, but it's I like food. It's food based. I remember a cake, which was the shape of the airship from Lazy Town.
Right.
I don't know if you ever saw Lazy Town. So my mum made a cake in the shape of the airship, and I remember that it was a Sporticus or a Lazy Town themed birthday. I was dressed up as Sporticus. I'm running around a lot. That's about all I remember, but yeah.
Oh, and are the pictures, is there evidence of this?
Yes, somewhere. Hidden deep on computers.
Yeah. Fantastic, Sam. Thank you. And Dawn, have you got a memory yet?
I do. So I have a terrible memory. I'm really great with faces. I will remember your face for a lifetime, but memories aren't so good. But actually mine involves food and people. So I was 7 when I had my first proper birthday party, and I was allowed lots of friends round. And my mum, she's a good cake baker, but my cake was in the shape of a butterfly, I remember, which was a circle in half. Yeah. Lots of jolly top on. But it was definitely, but it was lovely. It was really nice just to be able to celebrate with friends.
Yeah. And I can't remember if mine was a 4th or a 5th one either. It was about that sort of age, and I had a great party. All my friends came around, and apparently I was in a foul mood, overtired, I think my mum said. And so I got sent to my room on the evening of my birthday, which apparently was quite normal. And I kept trying to come out. And so what my parents did is they, of course, locked the door. But they couldn't open it again. And they couldn't, I'm not sure it's a key or the lock had broken, but they couldn't get the door open. So what did they do? They phoned the fire brigade. And the fire brigade came round and they put a ladder up to my bedroom window and I was brought down on my ladder on my birthday, and my last memory was sitting around the kitchen table with the fireman, all eating my birthday cake.
Wow.
So that was about 4 or 5 years old. Yeah, a memorable birthday. Well, thank you, everybody. I think we're just about ready to begin with some questions, but we're going to start with a prayer to start with. So let's pray. Father God, we commit this afternoon to you. We ask for your wisdom. We ask for your compassion. We ask particularly for your hand on young people, as particularly those who have been affected by the issues that we'll be talking about to do with school and about sort of transition to college or to university, and the difficulties that so many of our young people are facing at the moment, and also those who are supporting them, whether that's parents or schools or youth leaders. And we do pray for your hand in all this. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Andy. So we're here to talk about educational transition. At the moment, we know there's been a huge kind of difference the way that we're doing that in this season, and actually there is some evidence out there that the educational transition from primary school to high school and just educational transition in general is identified as one of the 5 most important life transitions for young people. That's massive, isn't it? And we know that if transitions aren't managed well, children with learning disabilities or SEN can really feel isolated and vulnerable as well. So the educational transition is so important, really, really important. But what I wanted to know really is, how has life changed for you in this time? What's been really, really good, and how have you adapted in this season as well? That's for anybody.
Well, I mean, for me, life changing the fact that obviously there's no more school, and so that meant for me no exams, none of that sort of thing, and then I'm sort of cancelling of all extracurricular activities and sports and music. But I mean, out of that, some good stuff has happened. Like I've had quite a lot of time, which has been good and bad. So I've managed to do some fun stuff, like me, my dad and my brother, we built a patio one weekend. I've done lots of work in the garden and stuff by taking down tree roots, which I've quite enjoyed. But then on the other side of that, at times it's just felt really dull because there hasn't been really that much to do.
Yeah. So my son's the same age as you, Sam, and the first couple of days, I guess, I gave him lots of jobs to do, and he turned around and said, "I'm just your cleaner, aren't I?" Which was probably true, actually. But what about you, Ben? What's been good? What's changed? What's worked?
Yes, I think like from a personal point of view, like I've got 3 kids and we've all been at home for the majority of the time, and they're young, 6, 4 and 2, so that brings some interesting dynamics having them around all the time. But actually we really enjoyed having loads of family time together. I think when lockdown ends completely and things go back to normal, I think we're going to really miss having that time together. I think from a work point of view, so like I said, we're schools work charity, so as soon as schools started closing down and shutting up, essentially 95% of our work wasn't possible, because we get, most of what we do is in schools. We do a lot of mentoring, a lot of lessons, a lot of assemblies, things like that, all things that couldn't carry on in schools. And that's meant quite quickly we had to adapt to how we can still do our work. We wanted to be able to support the young people that we meet. So we've got about 90 young people that we meet one-to-one every week across the team. And they vary from different needs and things that lockdown is going to affect them in different ways. But we wanted to make sure that they were still given an opportunity to be supported. So we very quickly, before schools completely closed, came up with a mentoring pack, which we sent out to all of the young people we work with. So it had loads of different resources along with like important stuff like sweets and chocolate. And also we created like email addresses for the team, like separate to our usual ones, so they could be kind of like safe and secure, so that if any young person at any point wants to get in touch with us, they can just send us an email and we can kind of give them a little bit of support, like all through going through the schools. So we're making sure that we're sticking with their safeguarding policies and things like that. But it's just, I think it's hard for the team, because most of them went into their jobs because they want to support young people, and well, all of them went into their jobs because of that. They want to give young people support, and to then not be able to do that in a kind of physical, like practical way is really, really hard. So it's been tough, but actually we've seen some great responses to like the stuff we have invested, like the mentoring packs, like young people really responding well to those and getting stuck into the resources we've given them. And that's great to see that actually the tools that we can give them, whilst probably not as effective as like getting to do that face to face, can still help young people like deal with the struggles and problems that have come up with lockdown.
That's so good. So online mentoring, 100% success rate, do you think?
I think some young people have engaged with it quite quickly and wanted to do it. Some we've not heard from, and that's not something we can force. Like we can't. It's got to be them that initiate it, so we can't chase it. But I think like I said, we mentor a lot of different young people, and for some of them, lockdown will be the best thing ever because school is hard work and they're happy to be away from it. But for others, they're in really tough environments where being in lockdown is probably one of the worst things that could happen to them. And I imagine it's those ones that we've heard from more compared to the ones who actually they're like, I'm not at school, this is great.
Yeah, definitely. And what about you, Andy? What's changed? What's been good?
Yeah, well, physically, we've moved as office-based work, so we spent a lot of the time there. So we moved out in March, and I've now been home-based since then, which has been nice. I mean, I don't miss the journey to work every day, so that's been good. We've also moved house in the meantime. My wife's about to take her first vicaring job, and she's getting licensed tomorrow night. So we've moved house in the process. So and then just trying to put things online that we used to do physically. Some things work really well. I mean, we've had youth council meetings on Zoom. Avoids people having to come and all the transport for it. We do a term of youth event called the Pulse, and we had that at the end of March, cancelled it, and then put together an online version of it in April that Sam was part of. Tomorrow night I've got a Grown Young Leaders course, and that's just coming to an end, and we're doing that online. So really just trying to do as much as we can in very different circumstances. But yeah, so I've enjoyed a lot of it. I miss people. I miss the actual contact with people. But it's been interesting. I wish I could go back now, I think, and do all the region and things I always planned to do in the time. But it's been very different.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, just like Andy, all of my work's gone online, and a lot of us, Zooming is now part of my vocabulary, which wasn't at all beforehand. But actually, like Ben, but we've been spending loads more time as a family. But it's been really interesting because I have 3 children, 2 who are doing online schoolwork, both in high school, and then one who's obviously year 11, who I kind of have to he needs some kind of structure to get that kind of, so the day goes a little bit faster. So it's been quite interesting how to manage that time, really. So here's the next question then. So what concerns do you think young people have about missing education and exams and moving on to the next transitional stage of college and university, and even those going from year 6 to year 7 as well? So what concerns do you think young people might have? Sam, or go on then, Ben. Ben's off.
I was going to kick us off. I think like young people I've spoken to, parents as well, like there's just still so much uncertainty, and I think Sam will touch on this more about like you know, what a grade's going to look like, how's that going to affect like colleges, going to university, things like that. And I think until there's, you know, a bit more kind of explanation from whoever needs to say it, the government or schools or whatever, like, I think that's a lot of pressure on young people. I was speaking to a young person the other day. He's looking to go to uni in September, and he's just got no idea whether he's going to get the grades to get into either of his top two choices. And he's, you know, he put work into doing mocks and things like that, and he hopes that that will give him the grades that he needed. But then he also doesn't know whether boundaries and things are going to change from the universities. And I think that uncertainty puts a lot of pressure on young people to, you know, when they're thinking about what's next, like, you know, it could be a long while before like those things kind of are worked out and young people can actually move on with their lives and work out what they want to do next. And I think that's, you know, it's really unfair. Like, I think the uncertainty for us as grown-ups is hard enough, isn't it? Like knowing, you know, what stuff's going to look like in terms of normality. But for young people whose, you know, their lives and their futures are in the balance, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, definitely a lot of pressure. What about you, Sam, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think mainly it's just sort of being worried about the future and worried about sort of the uncertainty that's with that. In terms of, I mean, for me personally, I'm worried about sort of what my grade's going to look like in summer when I get them in summer, how it's going to reflect moving on. I mean, I think luckily for me, I'm going on to a place to A levels where I already have a place, and so in reality, my grades aren't going to be that important in the long run. But for me, I think chatting to friends and things, people who are going on from GCSEs to apprenticeships and things like that, or more vocational courses, I think for them it's a real worry about whether the work they've done, whether that'll be enough, or whether their grades aren't going to reflect what they can actually do because they maybe didn't work as hard as they were going to. I think friends I've chatted to who are in year 13 and so would have been doing their A levels, the mass uncertainty there about not knowing what it's going to be like, what university is going to be like, whether it's going to happen in sort of September, October, let alone if they're going to have a place there or anything like that. I just think that's been sort of the uncertainty of that. It's really hard. And that sort of combined with the mixed messages coming out from the government and then different schools saying different things. You can chat to friends and everyone's school is sort of doing a different thing and telling them different messages, which kind of makes it really hard to work out what's going on. And I know some schools that have been offering students lots and lots of support and other schools that have hardly offered any. And I think that really does sort of makes it really hard to deal with everything that's going on.
Yeah, definitely. How do you feel about, because I've chatted to different people about this, if your exam results were not what you expected, how do you feel about retaking?
I don't think I'm going to retake mine. I think partly because, well, I hope that there is some sort of recognition that the grades we get aren't our grades, because as much as the grades I get are going to be probably roughly around what I might have got, they're not going to be exactly what I got. And so I hope that what that means is that there's a sort of recognition nationally that these grades are more advisory and maybe not the sort of strict things that were taken previous years. I just think I think there'll probably be some people who want to resit, but from the people I've chatted to, it's just more stress that I think is needed.
Yeah, definitely. And what about you, Andy? What concerns you about young people missing such a huge portion?
Yeah, what Sam was touching on for year 13s, I think there's a lot of uncertainty. And I've spoken to quite a few who've not been sure whether to try and defer their place, not knowing what the first year at university would look like. I mean, for instance, Cambridge are talking about doing all their courses online for the first year, entire first year. And so a lot of people thinking, well, actually, do I want that sort of experience? Yeah, and apparently about 60,000 people, because last Thursday was a deadline for offers to be taken up at universities. And apparently there was about 60,000 places that weren't taken up, but young people didn't respond to that. So that's going to cause a lot of pressure in the following year, big competition for places then. Universities haven't always been particularly happy about deferring places and wanting to know why you want to defer a place, and won't just automatically give you the place for the following year. So a lot of uncertainty. Also really concerned about young people, particularly from less affluent backgrounds. All the stats are coming out saying that people from private schools, for instance, have a lot more chance of going online to their lessons and that sort of thing than people from state schools. And then within state schools, the poorer the background, the less chance that they've got of going online and accessing the different education services that schools are trying to provide. I was talking to a vicar in Gateshead last week, and she was saying just for primary schools, there was one school in an affluent part of Gateshead, and they're doing amazing projects, all this sort of thing. And another school in the poorer part of Gateshead, they were hardly getting anything back from the children at all. So massive and widening gap between young people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, mental health has always been such a key issue for me. I really worry about young people's mental health in this season. And not only that, when schools reopen again, what happens to teachers? When you've got these children and young people that have not coped in this season, and they're going back into school, and they're just kind of like, this is my safe place now where I can kind of just relax and let go. And often that's when mental health issues will become more prevalent. And then you've got systems like CAMS that are already backed up, and it's kind of like, what can we do in this season when we're missing so much that we're used to? How can we help young people through this time, and teachers and schools, and how can we help in this transition in this next phase of life, really?
I think even when people go back to school, whether that's September, October, whenever sort of schools start to operate slightly more normally, I think we'll actually be feeling the results of this for years to come afterwards. And rather than just see it the immediate consequences. And for people with special educational needs as well, it's been a very difficult time not accessing extra tuition they might normally get, or therapy that might normally get. It's very difficult, and very difficult for parents who are trying to educate people at home as well. Yeah,
definitely. What about you, Sam? If you could give some advice to people like us who are hopefully helping support you guys, what would you say to us?
I think for me, what's been helpful is sort of just being told this is really bad. What you're going through, no one's really gone through this before. Hopefully this will never happen again. And it's okay that you're probably feeling really grim, and there are times you feel awful and don't want to do anything. And I think a really key way to support young people is find stuff for them to do. So for me, I found days where I know I have something to do, and almost I'm under time pressure, a lot more fun and enjoyable than days where I've gone, I can sit down and watch TV all day. Because even though I'll happily sit in front of the TV and just watch stuff all day, by about 5 o'clock, I just feel as though I haven't done the thing. Whereas if I know that I'm making dinner at least twice a week, I'm trying to get out and just do something so that it feels that I've done something. And if people help put stuff on, that's really helpful. But sort of on the flip side of that, it's really helpful if people don't expect people to turn up. So it's great having something on for me to go to, a virtual something. However, also the understanding that I might not turn up. Because there are some days where you just feel like you feel grim and you really cannot be bothered to go online and interact with people. And I think it's sort of like you feel in normal life anyway, but I think it's been made worse by the fact that we haven't really been able to contact people. And I think what's needed for different youth is really different depending on what year groups. So I know for me, obviously I haven't got any work to do really. So I've really enjoyed getting outside and doing stuff. However, I know people sort of a year above me and a year below me are having lots of stress about all the work they have got to do and how that's going to affect them. And I think they might feel a bit as though they've been forgotten in this time by some, as in they seem to not have had that much of an impact because they're not having exams cancelled, but actually the uncertainty that they're going through now, I think they just supporting people through that and being there for them, being there to talk to is really important.
Yeah. Our conversation next week is all about how to support young people with their mental health, which is such an important thing. Last week we talked about how to support our mental health. You can't give out of an empty well, which is one of the most important pieces of advice you can have. We've also had a comment about young people feeling sadness about the lack of ending. I think this Friday was going to be my son's prom. Not that he's bothered because he didn't have his dress, but it is an issue, isn't it? Especially for girls, where they have chosen their dresses. They know that that's the ending. That's the celebration.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think sort of, and that's why I think it's really important that schools are being encouraged to do things. So I know at my school, there's a yearbook team that's still trying to get our yearbook going and get that done. I think that'll be something really nice to have. And they have said that we will have a prom of some kind at some point. What that will look like, we don't know. But I think there is sort of definitely a lack of closure on our year, especially as we were given sort of 2 days notice that we were leaving. And at my school, we didn't really have a proper leavers day. We still have mocks going on and exams. So I think giving people a way of having some sort of closure over their time at school is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you're right, Sam. I mean, if people have been working, I think particularly people in year 13, but if you've been working all your life towards a certain point, and then suddenly you're told, okay, off you go, there's no finish to it. I think for people's mental health, you need to see the results of what you've been doing.
Yeah. What about you, Ben? Have you got any advice on how you can help youth leaders or parents or kind of help young people navigate this time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I see is important is like availability, like offering opportunities for young people, parents, colleagues and whatever else to have conversation. I think like Zoom has been massive, hasn't it, in terms of like everyone seems to be doing Zoom quizzes every other day and whatever else, and all of that kind of community stuff is absolutely brilliant. But I think for me, I see so many people who are in like desperate need of just someone who's willing to listen, to be open. Like I regularly have conversations with, whether it's through like text or, actually speaking to someone on the phone or Zooming or whatever, with parents and stuff who are like struggling with, various different things that are going on with their young people. And I think if we as the church can kind of lead that by example and sort of give those opportunities for people to engage, I think that's massively important. I think the biggest thing I've learned doing youth work for the last 15 years is that listening is by far the most important thing you can do. Like I'm naturally a fixer myself, as in I really want to like get stuff sorted out. So, like if one of my kids is upset about something, I'm like, right, what's the problem? Let's sort this out and let's move on. But actually, like I've learned that if you can just listen to people, give them a voice to speak, then that's way more important than me trying to solve whatever problems. And I think, through the mentoring that we do, sometimes you can sit in a room for 10 minutes where no one talks because actually you're just giving young people an opportunity to process what's going on in their mind. And eventually that leads to some of the best sort of conversations that you can have. So I think, I think people have been great at that, but I think that needs to continue, come September or whenever, when schools go back. There needs to not be this expectation that everything's just going to pick up where it left off and carry on. There needs to be some like freedom for young people to explore and learn and have people who are going to listen to, you know, whether they've had a great time in lockdown, whether they've had a really hard time in lockdown. Yeah, a lot of patience, a lot of listening, and a lot of just willingness to care for people, I think is absolutely key.
Definitely. So I know we've been talking a lot about the transition from kind of year 11 and year 13 as well, but I actually read some great advice for parents, particularly for those parents of children that are transferring from year 6 to year 7, because that's huge. Can you remember when you went from junior school to high school? I'm like, So the 3 most important things that parents can do, and you guys can add into this as youth leaders and church leaders as well, helping children get organised, look at your equipment, how are you going to get, like on a bus, really? You're not going to walk me? Oh, I'll tell you a little story, and maybe if we get time later. But also listening to their worries, creating that space where they can just go, I'm really not coping in this time. And also really start building good relationships with the school, which is so vital for a smooth transition, when parents can have that two-way conversation with the school, especially if you've got a child with special educational needs or whatever, or particular anxiety worries. If you can create that conversation with school, that would be brilliant. So have you got any advice from children moving from year 6 to year 7, making that huge transition in this time?
Yeah, I think for me, like it's what's really important to remember is that this term, like this post sort of Easter into summer term, for year 6s, it involves SATs, but one of the massive things it involves is young people, like these kids getting to visit the high school that they're going to go, like people coming and talking to them about what school's going to look like. They form friendship groups, they get to find out what forms they're going to be in, they get to meet teachers and so on. And like a whole year group is going to completely miss that. Like I know that some of our local schools are trying to do like little bits here and there where they, you know, they're having phone conversations and stuff. But I think what's really key is that those kids, like you said, Dawn, they get that voice to speak. They get that chance to say what they're worried about, what they're excited about, what they're worried is going to be different. But also when they get to schools, I think it's key that teachers and parents just, again, don't have that expectation that they're going to be able to settle in anywhere near as quickly as they might normally do. I think quite often there's a lot of build up to it, and actually when they get on with it, they're okay. But because things are going to be so different, there needs to be that patience. You know, you can't throw them straight into double maths, can you, in their first week of high school? They've got to have an opportunity to explore, to learn, and to do all those transition things that they would normally do in this term. They're probably going to look to be needing to do those in September, so that they can kind of get eased in. Because high school is a scary thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Sort of continue on from that, I think it's really important that parents encourage their kids to do any work or anything that their next school is going to sends out to do, and check the website for any sort of information on that, because as Ben saying, it's a massive step, and making sure that they're as prepared as they possibly can be, whether that's going through the routine with them. Maybe one day saying we're going to go to school one day, as you will next year. You're going to do it. If you're going to walk or cycle or something, we'll do that. You get up at the right time, have breakfast, that kind of thing. Just so it doesn't feel so out of the ordinary in September whenever we go back.
Yeah, really solid.
Yeah, so important.
One of the things I would have been involved in a couple of weeks ago, we do year 6 leaver services in the cathedral, and we have about 3,000 year 6s from about 80 different schools coming in. It's my colleague Sharon who organises all that, and obviously we haven't been able to do that this year, and so Sharon's put together a leavers service and sent it round to all the 80 schools who would have been
amazing
coming on, and hopefully they'll be showing it either to year 6s if they're in school, or they'll be sent out to parents who are putting it on their website and that sort of thing. But they do need that sort of feeling that they are moving on, that they've actually left somewhere and then moving on to somewhere else. Yeah.
That's so good. I know I sing pop, which is involved in the whole faith at home stuff that the Church of England's doing. They've done a similar thing where schools can kind of download some of the leaver services, so they can still feel like they're part of a leaver service. My sons were given literally hours notice. We're shutting. So we were already self-isolating. So very much like you, Sam, there was no kind of, this is your leavers assembly, let's go. It was like, bye. We might do a prom. But endings are so important, aren't they? So important. Definitely. We've had a comment here that says, someone asked if this might be the year for the greater focus on apprenticeships and volunteering to maximise on lost time. Really, just kind of thinking about how to spend your time wisely, really. Have anybody got any advice for those year 11s and year 13s that are pausing for the moment, or year 13s particularly, ready to go on to something?
I think that in terms of apprenticeships, if places are willing to take apprentices on financially, and you want to do it, it's a great thing to do. I think it's great anyway, and even in this current time, it's a job. Who knows what the country's going to be like financially going forward. So I think that's a really good thing to do. And in terms of volunteering, I think as I've obviously got quite a lot of time, I've been looking at doing some volunteering and seeing what I can do. I think it'd be really helpful if anyone wants volunteers, just sort of publicize it. I think there are lots of year 11s, year 13s who have lots of time on their hands and are willing to do things, but don't really know where to look and what to do. Especially if these people who are generally very busy and don't have time to volunteer, suddenly they've got loads of time but don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important if people want volunteers or know somewhere that needs, just get that publicised, get that out there, and possibly people will take off that offer and get volunteering.
Yeah. Where are the best places to do that, Sam? Where are the kind of social media platforms? And
I think, potentially getting in touch with schools and getting them to put it online and say, look, if you've got here are X number of places that need volunteers aged 60 and above or something. Obviously, social media's potentially getting stuff out on there, whether it's putting it in a Facebook thing that then maybe parents will see and share to their kids, that sort of thing, just so that it gets out there and it is possible for people to find these things really easily.
Yeah, that's really good. And what about you two? Have you got any advice on the way that year 13s, if they are doing that pause, let's just kind of collect ourselves, what can they do this next year? We know the job market's significantly squeezing and getting smaller as a result of the pandemic. Any advice?
There's going to be probably about 800,000 new people coming onto the job market, either from year 13 or from actually finished university. And a lot of those in the past would traditionally go into retail or to hospitality or leisure and tourism, that sort of thing. And those jobs simply won't be there as people come out. And so I think volunteering and organisations that organise that, I think that's going to be really key in the next year, or else people are going to find that they paused and actually have got nothing productive to do over the next 12 months. And that could actually be really damaging for them personally, financially, and not just to expect that there will be, if they don't go on to further education, that they'll just go into a job, because it's going to be that much harder to get a job next year than it has been in the past. So I think my advice, if you can further your education, if you can volunteer, then take every opportunity to do that. Don't just expect you'll just walk into a job.
I think it's really important that at this time, that I think the way that the school system, the education system is set up, is that young people are always looking for what's next. Just so like the way that schools talk about things, it's like you look to your GCSEs, as soon as there's done, it's onto your A levels, and from at younger ages you're starting the next step earlier and earlier as time goes on. I think this actually, there's a lot of worry about what's next, but it provides that opportunity to step back and say, you know what, like sometimes it's good for young people to get that chance to pause, to get that chance to think about what's going to go on in life. Opportunities to, like, Sam and Andy both said, like volunteering stuff, like young people get such a great opportunity to learn so much from stuff like food banks. The need for those has gone up hugely, and so I see quite a lot of posts asking for volunteers and things like that. If we can get young people involved with things like that, and I know loads already are, then they're going to learn so much from that, like practical life experience of meeting people and engaging with people. So yeah, I think again that's another thing where like churches and youth groups and charities across the country needs to step up and say, what, actually we've got this opportunity to volunteer. We're going to take a risk and invite someone along who is going to learn on the job and might make mistakes, but actually we're going to give them a great opportunity to sort of expand their knowledge, expand their life experience. And then when they do go on to whether it's university or a job, that they're going to have a wealth of experience that they wouldn't have otherwise possibly got. So I see it as a really great opportunity. Like, stuff's going to be different. It doesn't mean it's going to be all bad. There will be some stuff that's going to be tough, but actually God's in control, isn't he? And there's going to be some great stuff that comes out of this as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think volunteering for your local church is particularly important, especially in the season where church leaders some have been amazing at doing online services. Some have struggled knowing what to do. I personally do a lot of videoing, but I'll pass it to my son to edit it and put it together because he's awesome. So churches, usually young people, they have the gifts and the talents and the time and the experience and the knowledge to do this stuff. And actually, we should be using young people so much more in churches than we have been in the past, definitely. And listening, and not just using, listening. Listening is really important.
Absolutely.
Young people are so much better at all this sort of stuff than we are. I mean, I know a lot of churches in our diocese through Instagram have done all sort of different posts. And St Nick's Church, where Sam's at, you do weekly, like sort of 60-second sermons, don't you, Sam? And up to now, the adults have done it, and they get like sort of a few views. Sam did one last week. I noticed about 250 views. Sam,
amazing.
It's just young people have got they're so good at on those sort of platforms.
Yeah, definitely, really important. And I'm presuming you enjoy doing it, Sam. Yeah. Have you done one? You've done one.
Yes, I did one. Did it a few weeks back and it got put out last week.
Yeah.
I did a video for the Durham Diocese is doing reflections every morning, and for a week the youth council did the videos for that.
Yeah. And
that was really good fun. I think there was a lot of input. It looked from what I saw, it looked really good, and people engaged with it really well.
Yeah, there's really good feedback to it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Lots of different councils have been putting out kind of documents for schools and for parents and youth workers to kind of have a look at to see how educational transition can be done really, really well. And they talk about some research that was done in 2007, so way before kind of COVID was even a word or a thing, but actually it gives you 5 different ways that you can support people through a time of trauma, disaster and serious incident. So this might help some people in transitioning really, really well. So it's really important that you have a sense of safety, that adults and children and young people feel really safe in the place that they're going to. It's really important that there's a sense of calm. Never come to my house, because that's a really important thing. It's really important that there's a sense of self and collective efficacy, that people really feel in control of where they're going and what they're doing. Also that there's some kind of social connectedness there as well, that adults and children, young people feel like they have social connections and a social network. And that can be a real issue when you're transferring from year 6 to year 7, the kind of loss of friends and will they be with me and all those kind of things. And the last thing is about promoting hope. While life is difficult at the moment, there's still hope. And that brings me to my last question. In this time, what gives you hope for young people navigating these life transitions?
Well, for me, I mean, the key source of hope has been my faith, I think, and just sort of partly just because of the social side that comes with that. And I know, so my church is putting out services online every week to watch, and just sort of, it's not much, but just sort of people saying hello in the comments on Facebook. It just sort of does keep you going. And remember that actually there are still people out there, even though you can't see them. It's still, there is a point where we're going to be able to see people again, where we're going to be able to, hug people again and actually have fun. And that really does sort of keep me going. And just sort of knowing that this is not going to go on forever, that at some point we will be able to sort of actually meet and as a church again. That's sort of really encouraging. And then also I found just sort of keep me going within this time, give me hope, sort of just setting personal goals. I found that really helpful, and just do small things that I can do that then mean that every day just is a bit better. And I think, and that sort of encourages you that life is going to progress on, it's going to get better.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think for me, like the way that things have adapted and worked, so like church services been online with Zoom, and so like our house group, we were literally just starting a house group, me and my wife leading it just as lockdown happened, and I was like, oh, this is never going to work. But actually, there's couples who've got kids who wouldn't normally be able to come, all of a sudden can. And I think going forward, there needs to be a sort of merging of like, yes, we really want stuff to go back to kind of how they were and be able to meet in face to face, like and long to go out with people and, have like relationship like that again. But actually, I think we can still continue in this way. And I think that's really exciting, like for churches, for youth groups, but for schools as well. Like, when you've got young people who are struggling with anxiety, so have been missing school for whatever reason, can we connect them in through Zoom, through like, can they be in a virtual classroom alongside people where there's less pressure on that? I think for me, my hope is that we won't just try and like throw ourselves back into whatever normal is, but actually we can adapt to use technology like we've been doing now, and like have a sort of hybrid where people can still engage more, because I think there's huge potential for that, and I think it can keep people more connected where previously maybe they were getting left out of things.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, church is an organisation which is largely run by adults, and it's on the terms of adults, and it's how adults like church to be. And I just think in this time of pause and time of break, it's given church the opportunity of actually just sort of sitting back and reflecting on how they do church, and hopefully for young people to have some sort of say and input into how they want church to look like. Because a lot of church as it is at the moment is actually on young people, it's on young people's home territory, on the screen. And I mean, it needs to be a hybrid. It's not going to just stay as an online congregation, but for young people to actually have some say in determining how church should be going forward, and as we ease out of lockdown, and that's really exciting. That gives me great hope.
Definitely. We actually had a comment just exactly about that, about actually using young people, what they actually bring and celebrate, rather than sometimes we see them as a commodity and we'll do church too, or as a photo opportunity. Yeah, we've got one young person. Let's put them on the sound desk. They'll know that. They know that. But no, it's
too loud.
What's that music? But it is true, isn't it? It gives us an opportunity to be able to say, hey, let's just change church. There was also been another comment to say actually that this time could be used to actually uncover your God-given passions and talents, and actually by pausing, it gives you a chance to really kind of just pray into that and say, God, where do you want me? one of the best places to be is completely in the center of God's will. And God completely creates you with a unique desire and design, and it's such a great adventure to try and find out what that is. Crazy. I still don't know what mine is, but do you know? But it's amazing, isn't it? It can be such a hopeful time, definitely.
I think for me, like my personal story, I went straight from school into uni, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, no idea what I was interested in, and ended up doing computing in Newcastle, which just a disaster. Like I liked playing on computers. It didn't mean that I could do any programming or anything like that, and it went really badly. And then I jumped into trying to go to uni again, and basically I ended up in a place where I had no idea what I wanted to do, really unhappy. And actually, if someone at some point had said to me, why don't you just take a year to work out what it is, to pray, to, do some volunteering, to, do a bit of traveling or whatever else, then I think I would have been in a much better place earlier on. Of course, as time goes on, I see the plan that God had for my life, and I see how those sort of things that were really tough at the time have actually shaped the way I do stuff. And it took me probably about 4 or 5 years to work out that youth work was where God was calling me to. I think that it's such a good opportunity for young people to have freedom to explore, like, if they're in an opportunity where they've got a safe family life where, they can afford to be able to not jump straight into work. What a great opportunity, like what a blessing to be able to see what God wants to do with your life. Because otherwise, you jump straight into life, and before you know it, you're 60 years old, and you've not given time to explore what God truly wants you to do.
Yeah, definitely. I was exactly the same as you. I ran straight to university. I almost had this kind of like internal clock that said, right, you're 18, go.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I remember there was a girl in my year that actually had a year out. She'd actually paused and then kind of deferred her entrance. And we all looked at her like she was an alien. Like, why would you do that? Why? What? But it's true that, this season gives you the opportunity to just say, hang on a minute. Let me just slow down. Definitely. Any other comments that anyone wants to kind of bring up? I'm not even going to touch on the educational system, and do we think that needs looking at, because that's a large conversation. Definitely. And any other comments that any advice that people want to give, or?
I just think, sorry, Sam, go on.
I just think that really, so again, it's really important that any young people you're in contact with, that you do stay in contact with them during this time. Even if it's just you drop them a text occasionally, just say, are you okay? How are you doing? But just that really can make a massive difference.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, definitely. Andy, you were going to say something.
I think that's actually a good place to leave it. All I was going to say is just importance of responding to each person individually, rather than just sort of seeing young people as a group of young people, because they've all got different experiences of this time, and actually sort of take time to listen individually to people's concerns and hopes and dreams, and deal with them. But that's a great point about keeping in touch with people as much as possible in whatever way you can.
Yeah, definitely. And don't forget that we've had a comment saying actually young people can't be part of community unless their voice is valued and heard. And that's so important, that we never lose touch of that we always so important, definitely. Thank you so much, guys. I know we've had lots and lots of comments out there. Please continue the conversation via chat. This will be live, not live, it will be on the site, so you can, we're not going to sit here all the time, but you can rewatch
for next week.
Just sit here for a week. You can rewatch the conversation whenever you like. Please continue the conversation. It's really important that we walk alongside young people at this time, and those that are going back to school, whether they're not transitioning, they're still going back to school in a really kind of what may seem a very strange environment to a lot of children, young people at the moment. So definitely keep praying, keep supporting, keep chatting. Next week, we're talking about young people and mental health and how to support them. That's so vital of a topic as well. So, Andy, would you like to close in prayer?
Father God, thank you for this afternoon. Thank you for all these discussions that we've had. Thank you for the insights and for the wisdom that has been shared. We do continue to pray for all those people who are undergoing the effects of these changes for our young people. And we do ask for each one of us that we might all love you more dearly, that we might believe in you more wholeheartedly, and follow you more adventurously in our lives. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
It's been good.
Yeah. What happens now? Do we wave at this point?
We're just waiting for the live to go off.